do you think it's more of an intangible now, this flow state, because of our current level of distraction that we have in society?
If you get thrown out of your focus, it takes you 22 minutes and 57 seconds or something to get back into it. You only have a certain amount of time you can do that. Scatter focus, being more distracted, not necessarily a scrolling, doom scrolling type for no reason, but letting your mind wander, letting it go to where it is, maybe a meditative practice. So you need to have the balance of scatter focus and hyper focus. But I think the key is with this era we're in, where you're constantly on all the time, is you have to figure out where your flow zones and flow spots are at. So I have to go into a zone where I know that there's going to be no distractions. I'll close out of messages. I'll close out of any notifications. I'll close out of everything so I can just be present with the work that I'm doing right then and there. But even to that point, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get into flow because there is no formulaic way yet currently to do it. I'm just hoping, can I have a flow moment?
Yeah, let's do a weekly podcast. But I want to talk to you about flow states. And, I think about flow states as my own personal life. Last I even thought about them was when I read Kotler's book like a decade ago, I think. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And he kind of introduced me to the concept of it. And I'd like to hear from you what you think most people get wrong when they think about flow states, just in general.
Oh, I love that question. And we're going to go on a journey today. We'll unpack it together.
Yes,
There'll be some things that, that maybe you haven't heard before, and some things we're trying to figure out currently. So flow is just this interesting concept that everybody aspires to have. It's like this effortless effort. It's just, you have that feeling, in the zone. You just feel really good, whether you're performing in athletics or giving a talk or writing a book or just cooking a meal. Everybody aspires to have flow. So it was introduced in the 80s by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he's kind of like the godfather of flow. And he had 9 main flow areas that, you'd be able to understand when somebody is in flow. Kotler, who you alluded to, he took it a step further. He has 22 cues or triggers to get into flow. And I think they're all great. But what I have come up against in training athletes, NBA players primarily, but different athletes through the years, is they never know how to get in it. They don't necessarily know when they're in it. It's one of those retroactive things that I ask them, and I've interviewed. So just for example, Allison Felix, she's one of the most decorated U.S. Olympian female athletes of all time. I was like, hey, have you been in flow? She's like, yeah, I've been there 3 times. And she had a very specific number too. I was like, oh, okay, well, tell me about it. How did you get into it? And she's like, I have no idea. I can't. I just don't know. And I was talking to a friend, Mike Chandler, a UFC fighter, and I was asking him the same thing, when were you in flow? He's like, well, I remember this time I was fighting. I can't remember who the fighter was. He's like, I was fighting this guy, and I could see his feet moving before he actually moved. I knew exactly where he was going, and then I knocked him out because I already knew that. I was like, it's amazing. How'd you get in there? He's like, I have no idea. So it's one of these things that people like to use this word and talk about, and it's a great feeling in getting there. But right now, where the science is at on it is basically Kotler's 22, and some of these are focus intensely, go for a walk, be creative, challenge yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. And I'm like, it's very basic. I agree, it's great. But I want to figure out how to actually get into flow more regularly and stay in it longer. And that's the mission in the journey I'm currently on.
I love that. So do you think it's more of an intangible now, this flow state, because of our current level of distraction that we have in society?
Yeah, I think totally. Yeah. I think distraction it's one of those catch-22 things. I think distraction can be used in a positive way, but primarily it's used in a way of, we're working on something, we get a notification. Even if you look at it, there's what's the stat from the University of San Diego? If you get thrown out of your focus, it takes you 22 minutes and 57 seconds or something to get back into it. I think distraction can be good in a way of, you have so much energy and intentionality and focus and locking in on something, you can't do it hyper-focus.
Yeah.
So it's hyper-focus. You only have a certain amount of time you can do that. Scatter focus, being more distracted, not necessarily a doom scrolling type for no reason, but letting your mind wander, letting it go to where it is, maybe a meditative practice. So you need to have the balance of scatter focus and hyper focus. But I think the key is with this era we're in, where you're constantly on all the time, is you have to figure out where your flow zones and flow spots are at. So for example, I'll give you a very basic example, and then we'll go a little bit deeper here. Like if I'm working and writing a book and I'm at my house and I'm at the table, the sun's coming in, I love it. But then my wife's right next to me, who I adore and I love, but she's going to be talking to me. I'm not going to be able to get into flow state while having a conversation with my wife. I don't care what anybody says. Multitasking, you cannot multitask your way into flow. Nobody's a phenomenal multitasker at all. And I think it's crazy too with like the Zoom age that we're in. Like I don't even like doing Zooms because I know you're checking your phone on the other side.
Absolutely.
I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I know you're doing it.
Yeah.
So I have to go into a zone where I know that there's going to be no distractions. I'll close out of messages. I'll close out of any notifications. I'll close out of everything so I can just be present with the work that I'm doing right then and there. But even to that point, like I don't know if I'm going to be able to get into flow because there is no formulaic way yet currently to do it. So she says increase alpha. You want an increase in alpha. Beta, which is the active, can potentially be anxious if used in the wrong way, a low active beta, and a splash of gamma, which is a high level concentration. So all of these are different brain waves, brain frequencies, which nobody talks about. Like, can you upregulate them? Can you downregulate them? And you definitely can in different ways. Sure, neurofeedback is kind of the way that it's done right now, but we were putting together this plan. I was like, hey, well, can somebody do it just, they're about to go on the basketball court because I was trying to use it for my athletes. It's like, yeah, well, you have to get your, know whether you're a fast brain, know whether you're a slow brain, kind of know yourself and where you need to either upregulate or downregulate. So I'm here thinking of like, this is fascinating. Yeah. We have got to do a study on this. So we are currently in the stages of doing the study on this formula of how to get in it more regularly, flow state, and stay in it longer. I don't think it's ever going to be a thing where you just like snap your fingers, you're like, oh, I'm in flow. But I do think you can get there much more often. And we can go into that formula too.
Because it just makes you feel so much more effective that your actions are having an effect and you are hyper-focused. And it feels good to be in that hyper-focused state too.
Absolutely.
But, one of the things that I found was, even though I want to be in flow states, I really never had any tools on how to get myself there, right? It was just kind of like, you could tell someone, just focus, but that doesn't really
so
do
counterintuitive,
much,
right?
Exactly.
So I'm glad you said that because focus and flow are complete opposites. Like focus, you have to be narrowly locked in on one thing. Flow is you're letting it come to you. But it is, the flow state is kind of this intermix of those two together. So yeah, sorry, you just hit a...
No, that's great.
I think that's...
Well, and let's talk about that too. Like, how is flow different than meditation, for example?
Yes, great. So meditation, the basics of meditation, and I know there's people that know way more than I do on this, but it's training your mind to be in one spot and literally focusing might be the wrong word there, on one thing. So if you're going to meditate, some people will call it, like I call it, prayer. I'm praying. It's some connection too with a higher power usually that you're meditating with, but you want it to bring you into a peaceful state. And I know some, yogi or meditation guru is going to be like, he's terrible. It's totally wrong. But it is being present, keeping present with your thoughts.
Actually, Jay Shetty, who I had on this podcast a few weeks ago, would agree with you. That's exactly the definition he gave.
Okay.
And so him being the expert, I think you're on the right path there.
Good. So meditation, and the question was, how is it related to flow?
Yeah, how is it different to flow?
Different to flow?
Yeah.
Great. So I think meditation is the focus of being present in the moment, but flow is takes it a step further and being at your highest level of performance while being in a meditative state. I take meditation, it's one of the steps in the formula is, I call it meta visualization. So it is being in the meditative state, just like Jay is talking about and we're talking about, but also with the visualization aspect to it. putting these two together. And visualization, for me, I found the most powerful thing in working with these athletes is a self-efficacy picture. So a self-efficacy is acting today as if you are the person you want to be and aspire to be tomorrow. I learned a lot of this from George Mumford. He's Kobe and MJ's mental coach. He said they would always watch the game before they went out there. They'd watch it visually in their mind, and they'd see every movement that they did. They'd also watch it from a perspective, a different lens, that something happens in the game where they're down by 10. They miss 5 shots. How do you react? Because this self-efficacy also is never going to go exactly like you want it to be. But I think at the most basic level, this meta-visualization is visualizing what you want that moment to look like, visualizing what you want your life to look like. Because if you don't have a vision, you essentially don't have a plan. You're kind of just winging it, and you're just hoping things happen, which they might, but they won't consistently. Yeah. So I think meditation is the basic of, you're putting yourself into this state where you're able to be present. You're not having distractive thoughts, but then you're also visualizing on how do you want that moment, that day, your life to go. So I think that is one part of the formulaic way to get into flow, which is the overall encompassing.
Okay, so that's a powerful tool as well, is to realize that meditation is one aspect of flow, but it's taking it a step further.
Yes.
Great.
Totally.
All right, so give us some of these tools that you've researched. Tell us.
So here's what we have right now, and this is through a lot of the, talking about neuroscientists and a lot of studies. So there's 2 different types of brains when we're jumping into this, and we're kind of going back to the tracking the waves, the brain waves. You have a fast brain, and this is where you're always on, you can't shut that thing off, or you have a slower brain. Sometimes you can be different, but for the most part, you're one or the other where, you got to up it a little bit. You got to get that spark. So we'll start with the fast. So this is downshifting the adrenaline, downshifting the brain. The first step is diaphragmatic breathing. So diaphragmatic breathing, this is the 5 breaths, and we're also putting in meta-visualization with this. So you're breathing, you're doing the diaphragmatic breathing. We're going 5 breaths. You can go less, but that's the formula we're putting it at. So I think that's kind of the number, and correct me if I'm wrong, where it's the most effective, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, on diaphragmatic breathing, I had Dr. Navaz on here, and he talks about, do you know who he is? He talks about the vagus nerve, and one of the most effective ways of stimulating the vagus nerve is diaphragmatic breathing. And the effect of stimulating the vagus nerve is having more of a parasympathetic. And so if you're like me, like you described, where your brain is always on, you're always doing something.
Totally me.
Getting into parasympathetic is important. Is what you're saying.
Did he say 5 breaths? Did he give you a number of how many?
I think he did say 5.
How many rounds?
I think he did say 5 was kind of like the minimum number. But, if you're really trying to look to improve HRV, which is, as you know what HRV is, you can even do more, of course. It's just getting into a routine and a habit of doing more diaphragmatic breathing, stimulating your parasympathetic state more.
Dude, you know how good this is? We'll go through this, and you'll probably be able to give me like the expert of each area and take it to another level. So that's the first one with the meta visualization. So while you're breathing, you're visualizing, just like we talked about. The second part is bilateral tapping. So if you want to slow down this adrenaline, it's bilateral tapping slower, closer to the heart. There's studies of this neurological disruption through tapping of your heart. I don't know exactly all the details of those studies. Have you had a tapping expert on that you can tell me those yet?
Not yet, but it is something I'm looking into, is trying to find a tapping expert, because I do think that tapping can be very powerful.
Yes. And all of this, as it continues to go, like we'll have every single detail of which that's what all the smart neuroscientists are for. They have all that.
When you say bilateral tapping, so you take your 2 fingers, because if someone's not watching, you put it over your heart, right? And how fast are you just tapping your chest over there?
So just a smooth, slow pace, slow. And there's probably a number to this that we need to get back to everybody on, like what the rhythm exactly is. But to downshift, it's much more of a slow than it is a fast.
Got it. And so you do this after the 5 breaths.
Yes.
I'm just trying to get down to the exact protocol.
You're doing it. You're doing it. So, the diaphragmatic breathing with the meta visualization, then you're going right into the tapping.
Got it.
And then the third part is cross-crawl disorganization. This is for the nervous system. So to slow your nervous system down, cross crawl being both sides and in different aspects of it, this is we're putting in a Jefferson curl. So a Jefferson curl, imagine you're standing straight, you're going down to touch your toes, but you're curling your vertebrae in your back, and you're touching an opposite hand with an opposite foot. This is where the cross crawl of the mind and the nervous system comes into play. And you're just going so slow. And you're feeling every vertebrae as you stand back up. You're feeling it, 1, 2, 3, all the way up till you're up at the top. And then you're doing it the opposite way. Same thing, doing 5 of these, the Jefferson curls for cross crawl disorganization.
Got it. And so 5 reps of doing each side. A total of 10.
Yep.
So you touch one toe, you get back up, you go back down, touch the opposite toe with the opposite arm.
Yep.
Left arm, right toe, right
Correct.
arm, left toe.
Yep. And really, and just search this Jefferson curl. You're really just focusing on feeling every part of the vertebrae as you go. It's a relaxing type of a movement.
And that's to relax you further, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're really just, all of these things are getting you into a more of a relaxed parasympathetic state.
Totally. Okay. Yeah, that's where we're going. Yep. And then the fourth piece, which is a very key area that really needs to be dialed in too. And this is the part where it gets like, okay, well, you're going to have to make some decisions for yourself here. This is what I call neurosculpting. And neurosculpting is connecting to a higher power. So where is your gratitude state? You're not going to get into flow state if you're pissed off. You're not going to do it if you're mad or holding a grudge against somebody. What is this? For me, it is my relationship with God. And that's going to be prayer, that I'm working on some kind of grateful moment for the moment that I'm in, for being in this opportunity, for my wife, for something. I'm connecting this neural sculpting of gratitude towards getting into flow state. And this can be like, that's where you have to make your decision of what you want it to be and how many you want to do. This formula is meant to be between 3 to 5 minutes. So it's not quite an entire gratitude practice if you're saying you're thankful for everything, but just that last part of, before you step out there on the court, I'm just thankful to be in the NBA. I'm thankful to be able to have this opportunity. And a lot of people talk about that too, of like, well, I mean, it's, you got so much pressure on you as an athlete and stuff, but that's what you chose. Like, you're thankful that you're able to have that type of pressure. So long story short, neurosculpting is the fourth piece of this formula.
Got it. Okay. And so you do these 4 things in a row, and then what?
So this is now you're ready to go into action.
Okay.
So if you're talking like, hey, it's before you start writing, you're doing this before you start writing, now you're going into action. You go to sports performance, you go into action. You're going to step on stage, you go into action. Now the caveat here is you got to understand is it's not something that is going to happen every single time. Sure. The whole key we're looking for is to give people a way to tap into flow state more regularly on a more consistent basis and able to train their brain to stay in it longer. So all of this has to do with, when we talked about at the start, what the ideal flow state looks like in the brain and how do we continue to get our brain closer to that with the different 5 waves that we have. That's what we're training for. And as we do this study, it is training. People will go through this study. We'll have one group, which is the downshifting, the fast brain. We're going to downshift. The other group's going to be the slower brain that we're going to upshift. And it's pretty similar. The breathing's box breathing. It's a little bit faster. The bilateral tapping is closer to the temples and it's faster. The cross-crawl disorganization is fast, high knees. So everything is to speed it up. What was
fast,
slowed down.
high knees that you do. Okay.
Yes, fast, high knee action for a minute. And then it's the same thing with the neural sculpting. So we'll have 20 in that, 20 in the slow, 20 in the fast, and then 20 in the control group, which is we're going to say, hey, here's Kotler's 22 cues, because that is the generally accepted term of the highest level to get into flow state of what people have right now. To the nth degree, yes.
Okay.
It's such a counterintuitive thing to focus on results. And I'm glad you went down this because I think this is so important for people to hear. Results are the byproduct of your system and your process. So with an athlete, their system is, what is their elite strength? System is who are they essentially at the core? Who are you? That's your system. System plus process. Process are the daily habits that you focus on to get these results, but these processes cannot be results focused. So I'll give you this example. I brought up this player, Norm Powell, at the start of it. He was struggling with this aspect years ago, and we took away any looking at stats. Points per game, we weren't going to look at. Field goal percentage, we weren't going to look at. And you're like, well, why? Aren't you supposed to track these type of things? Yes, but no. When it becomes what you're solely focused on, you're never going to get the results if you only focus on the results. So we looked at the analytics, and his best shots were catch and shoot three and attacking the hoop, downhill, trying to get to the rim. So I was like, all right, Norm, all we're going to count is how many times you get to those shots. I don't care if you make them. I just want you to get to them. And he went through a time, he went 30 games without taking any other shots than those two shots. This is back when he was playing with Toronto. And he was coming off the bench, started to become a starter. The Western Conference Player of the Month that month was LeBron James. Eastern Conference was Norm Powell, which was absurd for Norm thinking where he was to where he had gotten. But he became so focused on this process that he had. So his system was he knew what type of player he was, who he was. He didn't put his identity into basketball. That's a whole nother topic of itself, of what your identity is determines how successful you can be in something, because we can go down that path. But then the process was exactly what we talked about, which led to the results. So wrapping it back to the start of the question of, can you get into flow if you're focused on results? No. You can't, because you have to be lost in the process, to be lost in the moment. But that's the trust that the results will come based on that.
Man, everything you just said, like I'm just thinking about when I meet with patients, all right, we meet with people that they have this goal in mind that either like A, they want to be healthy, or B, they want to lose 50 pounds, or C, they want to get rid of their immune disease, right?
Totally.
And so that's their goal. And I almost try to defocus them away from the goal, because to me, a goal indicates that you're going to get to something and then you're going to stop doing what you're doing.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
We have to go past the goal. You're going to achieve that goal and then you're going to do even better.
So identity is so important. And one of the first things I do when I work with somebody is I ask them who they are. And the three most powerful words that you can say are I am, and then you fill in the blank. So when I work with that, a lot of them will say, I'm a basketball player. I'm like, no, you're not. That's what you do. Who are you? And they'll be really stuck on it because their identity has always been tied in basketball. And that means if your identity is tied in what you do, it can totally be a part of you and makes you who you are. But if it is what you do, then you will rise and fall on how your results are. So if you say, I am a basketball player, your added pressure to the situation will increase because that's all you're known for. And then once you're done, which it will go fast, you will have a very difficult time transitioning into your actual life. Who you are, I am a great husband. I am a great father. I am a great leader. I am fill in the blank with what you are as a person, not what you do. I'm not saying I am a speaker, I am an author, but then that's going to become what I tie the results of that into, whether I have joy during the day or whether I'm just completely miserable, because that has become my identity. And it's one of the practices, a tool that I do is literally the I am statements. Write down 5 I am statements every morning, the votes for yourself. I am confident. I am brave. I am... And when I'm saying this, you're probably like, that sounds really elementary and really dumb. But it really, really works. I have this Olympic sprinter that I worked with in the Paris Olympics, and I had her do it every single day. And she was great, like writing like 20 of them. Ends up winning 2 medals over in Paris and her best performance that she's had. And it's that powerful of these, as it comes back to, once again, at the start of mindset.